Hey everyone, this is FixReef, and today we have this Hydra 52 in for repair. I already took it apart in part because I already know what to expect here as I saw pictures sent in by the customer of the damage. This is going to be a water damage repair, and it's not going to be trivial. So let's open it up and take a look. The problem is going to be with the connector board. This is a typical problem for 26s as well as 52s, where the water gets in and corrodes the heck out of this area where there is a fan circuit. And this is exactly what we see. What's interesting is that nothing else is damaged. All of the LED clusters and the main board look perfectly normal, perfectly fine. And the issue is just with the connector board. So let's put the light away for a moment and let's focus on the connector board itself. All right, so here's the connector board. This is our Wi-Fi module. I can disconnect it now and put it away. Let's zoom in on the fan circuit just so that we can see a little bit more into what's going on. Well, we have some probably a previous repair attempt. I see some soldering over here and some of the pins here, but a little bit of corrosion on all of the pins related to these two connectors. This doesn't look too bad. And then we have the diode. I think this is a transistor or a MOSFET, and this is the voltage regulator. And a couple of components, smaller components that I'm actually surprised are still here. Let me take a closer look under the microscope to see, because my concern is how many of the traces are damaged due to the corrosion and how much of it will have to be restored for this to start working again. So let's get under the microscope. So hopefully you can see some of this. So let's start over here. There is a resistor, a small capacitor, pretty good shape, and the traces are still there. The voltage regulator seems like it has one pin missing entirely. This pin is still in place, but this pin is missing, so this will have to be replaced. This MOSFET looks like this pin is missing over here, so this will have to be replaced as well. The diode is in a decent shape, just will need to be cleaned up, and it looks like something's missing here. I think there's supposed to be a component on these two pads, and potentially something else is here. Just prior repair attempt kind of covered it up a little bit. We'll have to see. Okay, other than that, I suspect at least some traces being gone. Like, well, this is still good. Just corroded a little bit, but this is good. What about this? That's still copper. Okay. Yeah, I think that traces are actually in a decent shape, surprisingly. Maybe not all of them, but at least some of them. Okay, this connector is very good. This connector is very clean. We'll need to just solder it, remove the excess solder, and make sure that it's soldered all the way to the pad of the board. And I think that if I can, I'd like to remove temporarily disconnect these two connectors and clean it up. So, okay, so here's what I propose. Let's remove all of these components, all 5 of them. At least the MOSFET and the voltage regulator will have to be replaced anyway. So let's remove all of those, potentially remove both of these connectors. I can probably keep the fan connector in place. It's in a very good shape. Then we will clean up the pad as much as we can and potentially give it an ultrasonic bath to get rid of all of the oxidation and reassemble. At that point, we should be able to see if indeed any of the traces are damaged, missing, or disconnected. First, I want to remove both of the plastic connectors, in part because I want to clean things up. Also, I don't want them heat damaged when I'm removing SMD components. Okay, that's one. You can see a lot of oxidation under there, so it's a good thing that we've removed it. Now let's get the other one. Alright, so both of the connectors are out, and the situation under those connectors is actually pretty bad. In fact, one of the connectors has one pin completely missing, so it'll have to be replaced. The other connector seems to have done better, but I may have to replace it as well. Okay, now it's time to get under the microscope and remove all of the SMD components here. Okay, to help us with that, we're going to flood it all with flux. And let's see if we can get them out one by one. It looks like MOSFET came out first. The diode is next. Voltage regulator. Capacitor. And the resistor. Well, you can kind of see the mess now. This is a war zone. Let's take a look at what we have. So it looks like these three pads for the left connector are in pretty good shape, and maybe this one pad. This one probably can be saved as well. This one will have to be cleaned up. On this side, these two pads seem to be okay. These two, maybe these three pads seem to be okay, but this one that got that came off on the connector is also messed up over on this side. So this will have to be restored. And back here, so the diode sees shiny two spots. That's pretty good. The MOSFET, only two of the three pads are shiny, so this one is probably gone. For the voltage regulator, these two pads are gone or missing, and these three pads are good. For the capacitor, these two pads are good, and I think for the resistor, this one pad is okay, but this pad is all messed up. Not to mention that there's supposed to be pads over here for other components that are completely missing. So we have our work cut out for us trying to clean this whole area up. So let's get under the microscope and get every single one of them cleaned up as best we can. The challenge with this cleanup is going to be that we have a lot of exposed copper here, which I don't want to put too much solder on, so I'll have to be careful and only work on the pads that I actually care about and the traces that I actually care about. So let's get back under and start cleaning up. Okay, the starting point for any type of cleanup is to make sure that we have enough solder on those components, on those pads. And then once we have enough solder, we can start removing that solder to expose a clean pad. So let's add as much solder as we need to. This is nice and clean. This is nice and clean. This had some corrosion on top, but I think we're able to get it to clean up nicely. Over here, let's see, this pad is good. This pad is also okay. This pad is also okay, just has a little bit of corrosion, but nothing that can't be cleaned up. Very nice. Now for the diode, good and excellent. Now the voltage regulator, these two pads are good, but the third pad is either missing. Yeah, the third pad is missing, so nothing to clean up. We'll have to run the wiring directly. For the voltage regulator, this pad is good, and this, and this. But this pad, let's see. This pad is here, just corroded. That's good. And this pad is here, just corroded. Oh, excellent. Okay, for the capacitor, everything is in place. I missed this pad. Looks like it's gone, so we'll have to be prepared. So capacitor is good, and the resistor, resistor looks like it's corroded. For the most part, it's corroded. Off, so we'll have to, yeah, that's gone. That pad is gone. Okay, but we're not done yet. And we're not done yet because there are some pads that are missing here or corroded, though, because there is at least, I believe, a capacitor missing here, maybe even a resistor. This pad is all right. So this, I have no idea what this is, but I think there's a pad missing over here. There you go. That pad is missing, so quite a few. Now let's take a look at what we have over on the connector on the right. This is badly corroded, but cleanable. Just like that. Same problem here. Cleanable. This should be okay. Now this is also okay. Let's see what else. I think this one, corrosion, but cleaned. And I believe there's supposed to be a pad over here, and that's gone, entirely gone. And this is where the trace is coming in. That's okay. And while we're here, I might as well add some solder to the fan connector. Go ahead. And excellent. Yeah, the fan connector is going to be just fine. Now there was quite a bit of corrosion under the connectors, so I'm going to remove anything loose and scrape it off, and we'll prepare it for ultrasonic cleaning. There's a lot of mess in here that I would like to get rid of so that I can see what's underneath. One of my concerns with this type of repairs as usual is the vias. Even though I can repair the traces that I visually see, vias might also be damaged, and in that case I'll have to repair vias as well, which I can also do. It's just a little bit more effort necessary. Okay, this is as good as it's going to get. Believe it or not, but this is the best we can do for this board at this point. And the next step is going to be ultrasonic cleaning. All of the, or the majority of the crud is going to disappear once we clean it in the ultrasonic bath, and we should be able to clearly see the missing traces and hopefully even damaged vias on the surface anyway, and find out what else we need to do. So let me put it in ultrasonic, clean it up, dry it up, and I will be right back. Alright, so the board is back from the ultrasonic cleaner, and it's amazing how much easier it is to see what's going on now. So let's take a look. Let's again start from the connector on the left. This is connected. This, I don't think it's actually connected to anything. We'll need to look under the microscope. This is easily connected. This is connected. This I will have to see under the microscope, and this is definitely connected. Connector on the right, this is all good. This one is good. This one is perfect. This one I'll have to see, but I think it's perfect. This one is definitely good, and this one is missing. It needs to be connected to this trace over here. Over in the middle, we have a lot more clarity, but I will need to look under the microscope to make sure that the traces connect to pads, and those pads that are missing, we'll need to figure out how to run them around. And whatever is supposed to go around here, I believe it's a capacitor over here that was missing, also needs to be connected. So let's jump under the microscope and take a closer look. So much easier to see what's going on. Again, this pad is good. This pad doesn't seem to be connected to anything, so we'll just need to make sure that it's good. What's interesting is that there is a burned area over here that developed. Not sure exactly what it is, but it might be some type of internal short, although this is not a multi layer board. So this might just be because there was a short because of water, and that burned through the board a little bit. As long as we clean it up, it should be okay. This pad is perfect. This pad is great. This pad, not exactly clear to me if it's supposed to be connected or not. This seemed like there's supposed to be a via over here, so we'll have to pay attention to this. And this pad is connected. Yes. So over on this side, so this is supposed to be the other side of this capacitor, I guess, maybe resistor, whatever. And clearly it's supposed to be connected to something, and now that something's missing. I actually wonder if that's, oh yes, that's this trace. This is not a, well, there is a via. Let's take a closer look. I think it's either a via or something along those lines. Oh no, not a via. Not a via. A little bit easier to see when it's wet. There's a pad and there's a trace coming through that pad. So when we put the capacitor in here, we'll have to essentially connect this pad together through these traces together through the pad. Okay, so the diode is perfectly fine. The MOSFET is missing a pad over here, a part of the pad over here, and then from that pad there is a trace that's supposed to go over to the voltage regulator over here, so we'll have to restore that, and then over to the trace with another missing pad, so that's easily repairable. Over on the voltage regulator, that pad is missing. There is no pad here, however there is clearly a trace that's supposed to go between it's supposed to go between this part of the MOSFET and I think it's still partially there, but quite a bit of it corroded off. Yeah, I think it corroded off. And that's that. And then this part of the MOSFET, this part of the voltage regulator is perfectly fine. There's supposed to be a capacitor here, and that's also good. And over here, where there is a resistor, clearly the pad is gone, but we can connect it to the trace. Just like that. And we can also clean up these traces. We'll need to restore all of it. And over on this side, this pad is good, this pad is good, and this pad is good. And over here, this pad is supposed to be connected to the trace over here. and this one's good, and this one is good. Overall, not looking too bad. Again, there is a burned part between these two traces. Again, my suspicion is that this is due to the short. It just burned through the board, but shouldn't be anything significant. All right, so now that we know what's going on, let's put our part list together and let's start reinstalling. All right, so I got all my parts organized, and it's time to start installing all of them one by one. I will start probably at the top from over here and just keep going down. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the original diode in place. There is nothing wrong with this diode, so we should be okay reusing it. Okay. Next up, let's install the capacitor over here. As you can see, the capacitor has one missing or mostly missing pad, so we're going to have to just attach it to one side and then we will figure out how to do the rest. That's going to be a brand new capacitor that was replacement for something that was entirely gone from here, so that's good. Now I'm going to put the new MOSFET in place. That's also going to be a new MOSFET because the original one had a missing pin. There you go. Now this looks real good. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just have this pin that was missing and the pad that's gone. We're going to solder it to this trace. And then we'll have to attach it to this trace. And it turns out I looked at my reference board and this pin is not connected to this pin. This is dead end over here. So I have no idea why it's going out so far, but it's not supposed to be there. Okay. And I don't need this blob over here. Not for now anyway. Okay, so the next one is actually going to be the voltage regulator. 4 of the 5 pads exist. The last one's missing, so we'll have to deal with that too. But let's put our brand new voltage regulator in place and see if we can put it in. And then we'll deal with the missing trace. Okay. Next up is going to be the capacitor. The original capacitor was actually just fine. So I'm just going to go ahead and reuse it. And last but not least is the resistor. Now that resistor, although it existed here before, it got damaged because the pad got damaged. So we'll have to put a brand new resistor in place. Okay, something like that. Just like before, I'm going to have it connected to one pad and then run traces afterwards. So speaking of traces, I think it's time to put those in place. All right, we'll start at the top again. And at the top, we have basically this trace that got disconnected, have it connected to the capacitor. And then from here, also connected to the voltage regulator. So for this, we will need a little bit of solder on those on the ends of the traces. A little bit here. A little bit here. A bit on the capacitor. And quite a bit over here. Should have done it sooner. Looks like this trace is a little bit corroded. This will work. Okay. A lot more flux. And I'm going to start working from the top towards the bottom. And this is how you do it. Nice and easy. One wire basically connecting a bunch of points without breaking it up. Now we can cut off the excess. And we'll have to clean up all of this flux mess later. But we won't do it now because we still have some tracing to repair. Then there is this over here. So once again, we'll need a little bit of flux and a little bit of solder. Let's start. See if I can get some solder on here. That's perfect. And this will be very simple, or should be very simple, but I do need flux. Okay. Once again, cut off the excess. And we're done with this. So most of the fan circuit is in place, but we still need to get the connectors up. Let's work on this side, because this side, on the left side rather, is going to be a little bit easier. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove my original solder from here, because I have brand new connectors and they're going to be easier to install with no solder on the spots. Something like that. And now let's see if we can fix a connector on top. Here's going to be my brand new connector. It fits fairly good. And now we should be able to put it in place. I know you don't get to see the whole thing. I'll try to move it as much as I can. I have a much wider angle view in my microscope than I do in the camera that's on the microscope. All right, the goal is to secure a couple of pins and then work through the rest. That's it. Now we should be able to just go through them pin by pin and have it secured. All right, the left connector is done. Now over to the right connector, and I'm going to do the same. Remove all old solder, or most of it anyway. Now we understand that we have one pad missing, so we'll have to figure out how to fix it. But for now, let's just focus on securing the connector. And now the remaining existing pins. Okay, and what's left is just this one pin that has a broken pad. As usual, you'll need some solder on both ends. And now we need a trace wire. Now these traces are much thicker than the previous ones, so we'll need something that's going to be thicker than that wire that I was using. This looks like a proper thickness wire. Let me flip it over so I can work with this a little easier. so you can see it a little bit easier too. And the rest of the process is the same. Quite a bit of flux between the 2 points. This wire is thicker, so sometimes I prefer to just use one of them to kind of break the coating on the wire so that I have enough length, just like this. And then all I have to do is just connect them, and they kind of fall in place. That's it. Let's cut off the excess. And that's about it. So at this point, all of the traces have been replaced and restored. All of the components have been replaced or restored, and including the connectors. It has brand new connectors at this point. I believe at this point all of the connections are good. I will just need to examine the vias. My concern is that some of these vias might have been corroded off. So luckily, I don't think that there are actually vias over here that are of significance, because most of the vias that are in place here are all ground vias, and the important vias are actually intact. These two and these two vias seem to be intact, so I think we're in pretty good shape. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to remove all of the flux here, clean this up, and we'll get back to this, and we'll need to seal some of the traces that we've just replaced. Okay, so this is the board. I haven't sealed anything off yet, but let me see if you can do a good zoom in. Everything is mostly cleaned off, and before I seal everything, I'm going to plug it in and ensure that it actually works. And if it does, seal everything up and consider it done. All right, so now that we put in the board, let's do the first test. In the first test, the lights may not come up, but hopefully the fan is going to come up. So let's test. I think I hear the fan. The light blinks good, and the fan is working. So it looks like we got the fan circuit figured out. Now the question is, will the light come on? So I'll need to turn it off and reprogram, and let's see if it comes up. I'll be right back. And look at this. The light is working. All of the LEDs are on, and the fan is on. We have the light fixed. Let me turn it off. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take off the board again, and I'm going to seal all of the traces that we've just exposed and repaired, so that it's all covered, and so there is no potential for future corrosion damage, and then the light will be done. Well, so let's see what happened here. Water damaged, fan circuit, typical problem with Hydras, required a bunch of components replaced, all cleaned up, traces repaired. This is a Hydra 52 video, something that I have not had on my channel previously, so hopefully it's going to be useful. But this completes this repair. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.